The movie begins in the middle of the night with a glowing white horse running around a wheat field leaving a trail of light. The following morning a man signals his sons to see the destroyed wheat field. The youngest among them, when they finally arrive, he shows them the destroyed field, then places John in charge of the night guard. During John's night watch he hears the neighing of a horse. He climbs the watchtower to check the source of the sound. In a thick fog he sees a huge white horse. John tosses a rope, capturing it, but it flees, dragging him along. He shouts he will sell it in the town's market while being hauled. After a while, it crashes. The horse falls into a swamp and begins to drown, but John quickly saves it using a wheat mill. After saving it, the horse sheds a tear as a sign of appreciation. John is touched. He sets the horse free. After making it promise never to return or ruin their wheat field, he looks at the destroyed field, realizing he will get punished, and sleeps in the stable. He wakes up the next morning to meet two black royal horses. He hears a voice in the background and picks up a pitchfork to attack it, and sees it's a little horse and tries to attack, but it bounces back. The horse reveals that the white horse that John encountered yesterday night is his mother, and the black horses are a gift from her. While he is here to guide him, and John calls the little horse Foal. John's father screams as he sees the destroyed field. Foal carries John on his back and runs away from the wheat field. In a flash, John reveals his plan to sell the horses, so Foal whistles loudly to call them before John's family captures them. They all go into the town's market, where everyone begins to bargain with John for the horses. Foal leads John to the palace, where John hopes to sell the horses to the king. Unfortunately, the king is busy chasing a mosquito in his chamber until he kills it, and the courtiers applaud him. The king dresses up and begins to scope the town from his palace. He sees John with the horses, thinking they belong to the royal horses. While everyone tells John their offer, the king and the courtiers come down to retrieve the horse, but John releases them, forgetting to take payment because of his admiration for the king. After they are gone, Foal reminds him about the payment. So Foal whistles again, and the horses come running back to him, crashing the king into a bag of flour. John laughs at the king's face. The penalty for mockery of the king is execution, but has been replaced with a fine. One courtier reminds the king that the horses will keep running back to him, so the king tells John to come work in the palace. John accepts and begins work immediately. Later that night the king dreams of John gyrating while he is beheaded. The following morning his hatred for John grows while John gains the heart of the people. One of the courtiers suggests sending John on a mission to find a firebird. A bird that doesn't exist apparently, and if he doesn't find it he will be executed. Despite Foal's warning concerning how difficult finding the firebird is, John still insists to go. They both go into the forest to collect some dream nuts to feed the firebird. Foal stops John from eating it, saying it will make him sleep. Then they go to an oasis in the desert, the house of the firebird. They see a warning indicates the presence of liquid sand, and John throws the dream nuts. After a while the firebird emerges from underground and begins feeding on the nuts. The nuts begin to sedate the firebird. Foal goes to sleep after telling John to wake him up when the firebird falls asleep. Unfortunately, the firebird notices them and starts to attack. After a fierce battle with great destruction to the landscape, the firebird finally falls asleep and John captures it. The following morning, the firebird is weak and sheds a tear of fire which ruins John's boot. John pities the bird and fears it might die, so he frees the bird and lets it escape. While the firebird flies away, it leaves a feather for John, and John finally gets how Foal whistles to call the animals. Foal suggests running away because they will be executed if the firebird is not delivered, but John insists on going back. When they get back to the kingdom, the king orders their execution. John intends to prove himself with the firebird's feather, but it doesn't burn anymore. At the point of execution the feather begins to burn and the firebird arrives, shining its bright light over the kingdom. The people rejoice with John, and the king is forced to reward him and declare a feast for John's victory. John controls the change of night and day with the firebird. The king and his courtiers discuss their next move to eliminate John. They finally decided to send John as a matchmaker to the heavenly kingdom to retrieve the Virgin Empress, which many mighty knights have failed. The following day a messenger announces the king's new assignment to John, and the people gather for John's farewell. Foal reveals the heavenly kingdom is guarded by 3 heroes. It is simply suicided for John, but John insists on going. They journey to the ice palace with Foal constantly trying to discourage John. They didn't encounter any heroes at the entrance, instead they were denied entrance by a barrier. The Firebird's feather breaks the barrier, releasing a ton of water which turns into ice. It washes Foal down the cliff, wrapping him in a ball of ice. While John's boot is stuck to the ground, John removes his leg from his boot and walks into the ice palace where the Firebird's feather guides him to the right Virgin Empress. John introduces himself to the Empress, revealing he is a matchmaker sent by his king. While trying to help her down from her ice bed, she falls in love with him. She tests his bravery by jumping down a cliff to see if John will save her, and John jumps. Her gown acts as a parachute, but John punctures it while she tried to save her. Foal finally released his wings and quickly flies to save them both. They all camp in the night before continuing their journey. In the camp, Foal advises John to leave the Empress behind and flee, but John doesn't agree. He covers the Empress with his cloth while admiring her as he sleeps in the cold. The Empress, who had been eavesdropping on their conversation earlier, was flustered at John's commitment. The next day, they arrive at the kingdom and the people celebrate the arrival of John while the ladies lust after him. The king and his courtiers are shocked to see that John survived the mission, and this magnifies the hatred the king carries for John because he was again forced to reward John. Later, John discusses his love for the Virgin Empress with Foal and he decides to give her flowers. He climbs to the Empress's window and she is glad to see the flowers. John introduces himself to her before she pushed him from the window when the courtiers entered her rooms. They ask her to choose the clothes to meet the king. She decides to wear male clothing and goes to the ball to meet the king. The Virgin Empress confuses the king with the courtiers because she expects the king to be younger and more agile. This infuriates the real king and he reveals himself, but the Empress doesn't believe him until the king shows his face on the gold necklace. The Empress apologizes for her insolence and takes the hand of the king. John expresses his jealousy to Foal concerning the king's marriage to the Empress. The king unveils his plan to marry the Empress the next morning, but she opposes the plan, saying she can't marry without her grandmother's ring, which has been lost in the sea. John volunteers to find the ring and the king agrees. Later, while Foal ponders on John's absurd behaviors, he sees the spirit of a whale flying in the sky. He asks the wind about the location of the ring and the wind tells him it is inside the belly of a captured whale that had turned into an island, and it points out the direction to Foal. The following morning, Foal and John set out. While flying, Foal reveals what the wind told him that night. Before a group of birds jam John's face, sending him down into the sea where he sees the captured whale in chains. Foal interprets the whale's language, saying she is sorry for her past mistake of eating up to 100 ships before she sheds a tear. John realizes that she just has to sneeze to break the chains. John and Foal ride into the nostrils of the whale. Foal uses the tip of his feathers to tickle the interior of the whale's nose. It causes her to sneeze and break the chains, releasing the trapped ships in the process. Once again, John forgets to collect the ring from the whale, but a crab delivers the ring to John and they back home. John and Foal climb up to the Empress window to deliver the ring. Meanwhile, the guards and one of the courtiers watches them from a scope. He discovers Foal can talk and calls him a demon. The guards forces their way through the Empress's room to capture John. The commotion wakes the king up and he takes his gun. He walks up to his window where he sees Foal. He shoots him and falls down to the ground while John is captured and his crimes are read by the town's messenger. A chick comes to the Empress's door and leads her to where Foal is. She reveals to Foal how she told the king about the recipe for eternal youth, which involves boiling 3 large pots of water, ice and milk at 3 noon. The next day, the courtiers plan to use John to test the recipe first. The Empress reveals that she can cancel the effect of the boiling contents by dropping her grandmother's ring in the water, the Firebird's feather in the ice, and the flower of life and death in boiling milk, and Foal promises to get the flower. Foal's wings have been injured by the king, so he has to run to obtain the flower. The king allows John to give his last speech where he confesses his love for the Empress before he is pushed into the boiling water. The Empress quickly drops her ring into the water and it pushes John out and lands him inside the pot of ice, where the Firebird drops its feather and it pumps John out and drops him in the boiling milk, and the Empress awaits Foal's arrival. Meanwhile, the flowers tell Foal that whoever plucks her will die, but he doesn't hesitate before he plucks it. The people think John is dead, so they begin to leave. At that moment Foal drops the flower inside the milk and John emerges gracefully from it. The king quickly rushes into the boiling water and he is engulfed by a bubble that takes him up into the sky. The people rejoice and make John their king. John and the empress look for Foal and finds him where he is waiting for death as per the flower's words. But the empress explains that the flower says to test the courage of the harvester. Then John and the empress are crowned king and queen and the people rejoice. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like our channel and subscribe if you enjoy content like this. Also let us know what movie you would love us to recap for you.